Hey guys, Mutant Cowboy here. This time we're going to be focusing on the PTS patch notes for Title Update 6. Now, since I haven't been playing Division for almost maybe a month or two now, I'm just going to be using a video of me playing the game that I have been playing, which is Remnant from the Ashes. If you haven't seen it, haven't tried it, I definitely recommend you go taking a look at the game. First, I know a lot of people say that I'm really negative about the game and that I'm maybe overly critical about Division 2. So I'm going to start off with trying to give them some props, trying to give them some cheers, if you will, for some of the things that they changed. Some of the best changes, the fact that they're increasing stash space by 150. That is a great change. I also want to give them props for getting rid of the overly normalized normalization. A lot of us have had problems with that, and it's kind of killed some of the motivation to go into the Dark Zone because of it, just because normalization is just not fun to play with. You have to make a special build for it. It's not great. So what they're saying is that they're not removing our recalibrated stats and basically just kind of bumping up players that don't have, I guess, 500 gear score. So that's a good change. That's pretty much how it should work, in my opinion. I like that. So the next thing that I'm, I guess, going to give them props for is apparently in conflict now. You will be able to change your loadout in the loading screen. I don't know if you're going to I don't know if you're actually going to be able to go and adjust your gear individually, like piece by piece, but that is definitely a step in the right direction. It is aggravating not being able to change between matches. At the same time, it looks like they're limiting it to just at the map selection screen. Still makes it kind of annoying because you're not really doing anything between matches. You know, you're stuck in that loading screen or that waiting screen for a long time. You know, depending on when you're playing or depending on your region. I mean, I've been stuck in there for like 20 minutes just not doing anything, waiting for a match. That's not fun. So maybe they can do something with that, but still, it's a step in the right direction. And of course, targeted loot. It's not exactly what I would like, but it's a step in the right direction. Being able to actually know where some brand pieces or some weapons or whatnot are more likely to drop is definitely beneficial to us considering the size of the loot pool. They're also making changes to the crafting, you know, being able to hold a lot more materials, which is great. Obviously, that's been a huge problem. I don't know how much it's going to affect most end-game players at this point, especially if you have plenty of gear sets and plenty of brand sets, and basically you have got all these builds and everything. I don't know how much crafting is going to help. But if you're still leveling up, or if you're still kind of trying to figure out what builds you like, you know, it might give you a little bit more help. The other things I want to, I guess, talk about is it looks like they are making some changes and they are making some rebalancing with a lot of the talents, which is good. Obviously, something that Division 1 lacked was this constant, you know, readjustment and reevaluation of the talent system. Well, it looks like they're actually trying to keep up with it, make sure that talents stay active and stay usable. They're not just leaving them behind and forgetting about them as they introduce new things. So that's good. Keeping them important to the game keeps, you know, builds alive. It keeps diversity alive. When you have these adjustments to it, I mean, it does make it a little bit annoying to refarm or rehash all your builds, but it is better than just having useless talents for the next year and only using 2 or 3 of them per piece. So that's good. Keeping them alive, keeping it active. That's good. They are nerfing the Eagle Bearer. Now, I don't know where I stand on that one exactly. I'm not really a fan of overly powerful weapons, but at the same time, this is supposed to be a strong weapon as it's the raid exclusive. If you kind of just bring this down by 15%, I'm not sure if it's more powerful. I never really cared for the talents on it personally. I really like the actual high-end P416 in many cases more than the Eagle Bearer, at least on paper. I don't have the Eagle Bearer, and I really can't be forced to play the raid to get it because it's not about difficulty. It's not about getting a group. It's just the raid to me is incredibly awful and boring, and I just have no interest. You know, it's a looter, and you're supposed to do the content for loot, but the content is so not very good to me that I can't be bothered to get it. That's pretty much it. But I still think it's kind of crappy to nerf it by that much, especially for, you know, the people who've gone and got it. I mean, I could see a 5% reduction, or maybe, you know, a lowering of some of the talents, but the weapon itself, I don't think that reducing it by that much is really good for anyone. I mean, especially for people who haven't even got it yet. Anyway, then they're making a bunch of other bugs and UI fixes, blah, blah, blah. My issue with this whole thing is that it's not really anything that's going to improve the actual base game. Like, what I mean is that if you've already gotten to 500, if you already have a bunch of maxed out, min-maxed gear, you're just kind of done with the game. You've left the game like me, or you left the game a while ago like many other players. Nothing here is going to bring you back in. Now, I know this isn't everything. There's going to be more states of the game, more information coming out. As it stands right now, the information that they're presenting of what they're trying to incorporate does not make the game feel, ooh, wow, I have to get back into it. The changes they're proposing do not make the game seem like a must-play yet. It's kind of quality of life upgrades. That's it. If you're not crafting, that has no effect on you. If you're not really trying to PvP, then the PvP things don't have any effect on you. If you're not obsessed with having this specific build all the time, then these changes don't have any effect on you. This is basically like a carrot on a stick being dangled in front of you as like, hey, look, we changed everything, so you got to go refarm all of your old stuff again. You have to go rebuild all your things again. All those talents that you thought were garbage, well, now, guess what? You have to go find them again and clog up your stash space with all this new stuff. It's not enough. I mean, it's not going to help. It doesn't solve, adding stash space is great. We've needed it. It doesn't make the system better. It might actually end up making it kind of worse because they're adding more gear, adding more, I guess, usable talents. So the pool of what you're going to want to keep and what you're going to want to have for recalibration and stuff like that is just growing and growing and growing. Basically, it comes down to the fact that the stat system with this red, blue, yellow utility, offense, defense stuff is not beneficial to most of the player base. It's not a good system. The way recalibration works with this allocated stat range, so you can never really get min-maxed rolls, and you can never really fully optimize a build, means that you're constantly gathering random stuff just for other possible builds. It can be aggravating for collector types. It can be aggravating for theory crafters. It can be incredibly aggravating for people who are kind of fitting into all those categories. It's not a helpful, it's not a fun system to work in. It doesn't seem to address any of the issues with skill mods. The way that the skill mods work are very, very bland. So it's not like you have this incredible desire to theory craft on your skills that much. I mean, you put in these things in the slots and that's it. And then you basically the only theory crafting is, well, which skill do I want to use? I mean, some of these skill mods are just, garbage or dumpster or boring, and you're still going to need to have like 20 of each mod just to make sure that you might have the skill range for whatever build you're using. It's not good. I don't like it. I don't care for it. And this update, at least as of now, is not addressing that specific topic. Beyond all that, a lot of people, especially some of the YouTubers or people that are active on the forums, it's constantly about loot. And yes, it is a looter shooter, and loot is very important. The way that the stats roll, the way that the location of specific sets or how you farm things, it's all very important. No one here is playing a weapon generator simulator or armor generator simulator. You're getting loot because you want to use it. You want to be able to play the game. So the loot is not as important as the actual game is, as it stands. The way that missions are, the way that bosses are, the way that the raid is, the way that any of these end game activities are, they're very boring. I mean, they've been boring. They pretty much went into they said they went into it with end game first, and really what they meant is we went into it with refarm this over again first. So they started off the game knowing that they just wanted you to refarm this exact same stuff over and over again because they really weren't going to add any good content down the line. We don't know exactly what kind of missions we're going to get. I can assume that we're probably going to get some sort of, 2 missions and some sort of bonus extra like we got with the Kenley College. And that's going to be the last castle. I don't know exactly how it's going to work. Maybe it's going to be some sort of random dungeon generator thing, or it's going to be that, exactly like we got at Kenley College, where there's just different panels that you can activate randomly and get a loot box. I mean, that's not very exciting. But you have to look at what games are doing that actually sets them apart or makes them successful enough, right? And a lot of it is, it's not in the way that you acquire loot. It's not really in the way that you fight random enemies. The thing that really successful versions of the looter shooters or whatnot are doing well are interesting boss fights. Like, look at the current game that I'm playing now, Remnant from the Ashes. It has some really fun boss fights, and it has really diverse boss fights, and the things are really difficult, but it feels rewarding to do them. It feels good to fight a boss. It's, such a different experience from just fighting random enemy here and random enemy here. Now they have, these little mini bosses that are kind of more similar to enemies, and that's okay, because they're not relying completely on mini bosses and trying to portray them as actual big bad guys. The Division excels at, well, we're just going to take the same architecture and make him tougher. That's not fun. Like, you're just replaying the same shit over and over again. All I'm saying is that if this game wants to improve, they need to go back, see what games do well in this space. Look at Destiny. Look at Dark Souls. Look at Remnant from the Ashes. There's a bunch of other games, and including Borderlands series. The Borderlands series has some fun and interesting bosses. Now, they're just going to have to figure out how to make it a more realistic setting, make it more acceptable to the kind of current player base that they have. But they really need to step up their game when it comes to actual boss fights. Because as of now, they're just not interesting. They're not fun. It's usually like a wave of enemies before the regular boss comes out, and that's it. They need to work on it. They need to make it better. They need to make boss fights interesting and worth doing. They need to make these things fun. So like, you're willing to go through the mission just because you want to get to the boss and fight the boss. You want to encounter these random bosses, walking around the name world, or you want to encounter some sort of interesting mechanic in the world. I thought they were kind of touching on that subject when we discovered the giant flying drones. Obviously, it became a disappointment because the giant flying drones are pretty boring. The first time that I fought one, it was exciting, and I was kind of like, oh man, this is kind of a cool feature that they've added. It turns out they're really nothing. It doesn't have any life to it. And they haven't really gone into it to further that life. They haven't really brought anything to it. They haven't really increased its kind of offering to the player. They haven't gone in and done anything that increased its offering to the player, which is very disappointing. The closest thing that we've had in the series so far is in Division 1, the UN mission where you're fighting Colonel Bliss. He's in the helicopter, and you can turn on the turrets and, use them to shoot him, and he kind of then destroys the turrets. There's at least some mechanic there. There's some interesting avenues of approaching the battle. It's not just the same standard, I'm a bigger guy with a bigger weapon and more health, but I'm the exact same enemy that you've been fighting the entire time. It's not fun. If they want us to actually take enjoyment from some of these fights, they need to get in there, dive deep, and make these fights good. They need to make missions with fights that you want to do, not just you're grinding through it just because. I mean, obviously, no matter what you add, it's only going to last so long anyway. But at least then, you're offering players something tangible that they can play, something that they can replay that's fun. When you just change things, it's no better than just bumping up gear score for no reason. When you change things, it's no better than just basically telling players, well, we're not adding anything, so just keep redoing the same stuff you've been doing. That's my concern with the game, because this seems very reminiscent of the Division 1 cycle that we went through, 2 years ago after, a year of Division. Except they seem to be on an accelerated timetable. They seem to be stepping it up much quicker, though, so they're like making random disappointing decision after random disappointing decision much quicker. Hopefully we can get to some point that is Division 2 1.7 really soon here. I would really enjoy having a game that's actually fun to play. I don't want to be stuck in some of these terrible patches that we are looking into, you know. I don't want to go through Division 1.1 through 1.6 again. Now, there were things that I enjoyed in obviously Division 1, especially back then. But I don't want to go through this process again. I don't want to go through this constant like nerf buff, freaking add random gear score, you know, changes over and over again. Like I want there to be a focus. Like if you're going to add gear, doing it for the same missions over and over again isn't life in the game. If you want to add these changes, it needs to be included with actual life-bringing content. So, we need better raids. We need better missions. We need better side events, I guess you could say. Like, I'm not talking about like in the LZ. I'm talking about we need better things to do like Kinley College. But Kinley College wasn't good. I'm saying we need better things like that, where it's not part of the actual, maybe it's not part of the actual in-game world, but it's something diversionary to go do. So, you know, maybe like survival or underground, something along those lines. Now, obviously, I'm not saying recreate underground, not saying recreate survival as is. I'm just saying things like that help bring life to the actual gameplay. When you add in new sets and new things to put into that new stuff, it makes grinding feel good. When you just add new things into the old content, it doesn't feel good. I don't want to go back just to go farm the same old content. Like, I'm not going to do that. That's not fun. While all these changes are well and good, and some of them are definitely needed, many of them actually should have been in the game from the start, and they should have at least been patched in much quicker than this, because they're kind of like common sense, no duh improvements. So having to wait this long while your player base is pretty much dwindled to almost nothing, it doesn't seem like a smart decision. Well, anyway guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, leave a comment down below, whatever you want. I'll see you guys in the next one.
Damage over 15 seconds, but its base damage is only 32.